Hey everyone! We're excited to be back with another Inside Battlefield episode. We took a short break, but we're back now. And today we're here to talk about our new seasonal event, Leviathan Rising, which also comes with a limited time game mode, Shutdown. So my guests for today are Matt and Raunaq. So guys, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
It's lovely to have you. Can you please introduce yourselves to our guests?
Shall I do?
Guests.
Okay. I'm Matt from the Game Modes team, and I'm kind of like for this game mode. I think I took on basically the role of kind of like helping out organizing it, setting priorities, and helping with the scheduling and so on. And generally speaking, try to help people make awesome game modes. And been at DICE for a bit. Have done maps before. You might have played some of them.
Which ones did you do?
First single player, Battlefield 1, and then Fort de Vaux for They Shall Not Pass. I really like that one. Then worked some on Star Wars, Yavin, for example. Then Battlefield 5 Devastation, and some others. I forgot. In the live service, we did a lot of different stuff. I did the last one that we released. I forgot the name of it now. It has an encampment something. It has a very difficult name. Yeah, that one.
You've been around the block so much that you forgot what you worked on.
It's also like with the map names, like we always internally like call them something else. I will probably do this in this podcast. I will say something like, so we doing this on Ridge, and then like, what is Ridge? Oh, that's exposure, right?
Yeah, that I think that has happened in every podcast episode so far.
Hi, so I'm Raunaq, also on the Game Modes team. I'm a game mode designer, and I'm one of the people that gets helped by Matt to be functional over the course of the day. I've been the designer on Shutdown, and I have been at DICE for, I want to say, almost 2 years, just about 2 years. Before that, a couple of other companies, not as great as DICE. And yeah, that's me, actually. Game Modes is kind of an interesting place to be for the first time. I think it has a lot of... It pokes a lot of systems in the game. And so it's really interesting to understand the scale of that on Battlefield. It's something I'm enjoying doing a lot. And it's something you don't really have access to on a lot of other games. Yeah. You need a specific type of game to have game modes to work on. So I'm learning a lot on the job. And I have a great team around me to help me with it.
So your background is not game mode design?
No, it's not game modes, actually. It's occasionally been systems. It's occasionally been economy.
Okay.
So I'm coming from that.
It's also a funny thing, though, because game mode design itself as a craft, so to say, is... I think you don't find it often, other than like maybe in very big studios, but we haven't had it really before, someone of us started like first, and then I think it was just one person basically for 2-3 titles, and now it's a team, but it's just only a team with this, with 2042. Yeah.
Okay, but it's fun to see those teams growing at DICE, and we're expanding into different areas that we didn't do before, and then we get cool new stuff like Shutdown.
Yeah, definitely.
Which we'll dive into soon. Before we do, though, by the time you're listening to this, update 4.1 went live, I think about 2 weeks ago. So just a quick recap for those who missed it. What's in this update? So we've got 3 new vault weapons: the AEK 971, the RPK 74M, and the MP443. So I can't remember how many vault weapons we actually have now, but it's a bunch. So these are the latest additions to All Out Warfare. The IBA armor plate got an overhaul. It now only protects the chest, no longer the whole body. So we've received a lot of feedback on this. So hopefully this plays out well for you. We've got chat improvements. It just looks much better, less clutter. And you can customize the opacity and color options. All chat is still incoming in a future update, so stay tuned for that one. We also updated the mastery requirements for Sundance, Crawford, Zane, Liz, and Dozer. Again, we had a lot of feedback that it was too difficult to unlock their mastery, so we made those requirements a little bit easier. And we've got some gadget tweaks like the OVP recon drone, who can now destroy equipment. Leviathan Rising, let's go into the event itself. It runs from April 11 to April 25. So by the time you folks are listening to this, that should be tomorrow. So I'm very excited for this to go live. Raunaq, can you tell us a little bit about the story for the new mid-season event?
Sure. So Leviathan Rising, of course, is named after the Leviathan Division, which is a task force run by Camilla Blasco. That's what she's a part of. And specifically Shutdown as a game mode is an assignment given to the Leviathan Division. You'll see cosmetics for them, and I think they're some of the coolest looking cosmetics we've done so far. And you want me to talk about the background for Shutdown itself in the narrative as well?
Yes, but let's give a quick overview of the event itself, and then I would love to just dive straight into Shutdown.
Sure.
So I'm shutting down the conversation on Shutdown right now, but we'll get back to that in like a minute. Just so mid-season event, you play as the Leviathan Division, as Raunaq just mentioned. It comes with new gameplay rewards, and there was a Slack notification. Let me turn off my sound. New gameplay rewards, free store items, store bundles are available during the event, and since the event runs for 2 weeks, there's different rewards per week, so be sure to check back. I'll give some examples. Obviously, we can't show it on the podcast, but you get weapon charms, weapon skins, specialist sets as well. A lot of cool stuff. And then the game mode, Shutdown. So
Also, like all of the cosmetics, they're green. I love it. It's my favorite color. Has to be good.
yeah, okay. Like I'm pretty much wearing all green today, so I'm on brand for Leviathan Rising. Do you want to talk about the
Yeah, of course. So Shutdown, the way Shutdown is structured in the world of 2042 is that the Leviathan Division has intercepted data drives that are being transported around the world, and their job is to make sure nobody gets their hands on them. What you're going to do is you're going to pick up this new gameplay object that we've made. It's called the ESA 500 Lance system. We call it Lance for fun, but I have no idea what players are going to call it when they get their hands on it. My favorite one is Lissiles, though. Is the missiles are called Lissiles. So you, of course, if you want to wipe out data from data drives, you can't go around plugging each and every one of them into a computer. And the Lance's job is to essentially microwave everything in its vicinity. The game mode itself is structured around you as the Leviathan Division, infiltrating an enemy-owned objective space, and microwaving as many things as you can. A fun lunch, nutritious for everybody.
I think I made a comment in one of her blogs, like, what else can I cook with these drives? They can fry everything and microwave everything.
But to be clear, they don't fry your gadgets.
Okay, so it's just for the
objective.
The objectives. Okay.
And lunches.
Anything you want to add, Matt?
No, that's actually what you do. 2 rounds. You said that, right?
Yeah.
2 rounds. That's the special thing, kind of. Like, I mean, it's not the only special thing, but that's a very special thing. We haven't really. I don't think we have ever done this, or like even like before us, like anyone in the Battlefield franchise has. Then like mid-round side switching, we do it at the end of the round. We have done it with Rush, with Breakthrough, and so on. But I'm not entirely sure if we have done it mid-round before.
Yeah, we call it halftime here to separate it from just switching sides, where we just take you away from the game and then drop you right back in 30 seconds.
And that's very smooth as well. You just immediately transition into the opposite side of that you just played. So you play as an attacker and a defender.
That's correct.
How many people play in the mode?
So it's 8v8. There's 8 on each side, so that's 2 squads going up against 2 squads.
Okay, and smaller skill map layouts as well.
Yes, definitely. Some of the smallest we have, I think, at this moment.
Yeah, and that's the intent. It's close quarters,
exactly.
Very team focused. Hopefully, nice and chaotic gameplay that players like for Battlefield.
Yeah. Infantry focus, so no vehicles. You still have HQs where you spawn in. There's no flag spawning or anything like that. So that's also like one of the reasons why the maps needed to be small. But also, the focus on infantry focus. And what else?
Because close quarters combat was such a big deal in the mode as well, we've got something of a cover pass for the Shutdown objectives too. Yeah. So when you're going to be playing one of these maps on Shutdown, you're going to see some new cover. And you're going to see some new objects placed around the level to try and exploit more of that CQC experience that we're so excited about for this.
And can you tell us which maps we can play on?
Yes. So Shutdown is going to be on 4 maps, which is, of course, including Flashpoint, which is the new map for Season 4. It's also going to be on Manifest, which is the hilltop layout. It's also going to be on Exposure, which happens to be my favorite, and it has a little Damavand Peak reference for the defenders. And the final one is, what am I missing?
Drained, Stranded, sorry. Yes.
Is it Stranded? It is Stranded. Yeah,
Stranded.
that's right.
Yes, that's
The big boat.
The big boat.
Well, we have 2 big boats, but the new big boat.
Yes, exactly. I was just computing which one is the correct development name and which one isn't. But yes, it's Stranded. So the Season 2 map, actually.
Okay. So that sounds like a pretty cool mode. Matt, you already mentioned, it's not something we've ever done for Battlefield, I believe.
I mean, we have done so many Battlefields, so I might miss something, and I'm very sorry for that. If someone is like on the other side, it's like, no, how could you? But we certainly haven't done it in a long time. I mean, I've been around here since Battlefield 1, and before that, I played a lot of Battlefield 3 and 4, and I don't remember any mode there that had like 2 rounds in itself. And it's also like, it's not just that. It's not just like, hey, you play 2 rounds. Like, you know, we could do this with breakthrough and so on. But it's also the whole scoring system is about measuring that, right? Like you win by playing the better round. That might be because you destroy more data, or that might be because both teams destroy the same data, but you do it faster. So there's a clear, you know, like it's a clear competition there. 2 teams, and then, you know, like football, you know, you swap sides and you go. I mean, here it's an attacker-defender thing, but there's a certain competitive element to it that we definitely try to lean into.
So to clarify for the listeners as well, you play as both an attacker and a defender, but like you win the match by gaining the most points as an attacker, and as an attacker is where you plant the lances.
That's correct as well. Right. So the format is that you play either an attacker or defender in round 1, and then you switch sides, and then you play the next round as whatever you didn't play just now. So if you start as attacker, you'll play round 2 as a defender, and if you start as a defender, you'll play round 2 as an attacker. What happens in round 1 is that the score is set. So if a team scores up to 90 points being the max, if a team scores 45, your objective in round 2 is to beat their score in less time than they took to set it. So we've been thinking about it as kind of lunchtime Battlefield, where matches have to be quick. You're always on the objective. You're never playing beyond the point where you can no longer win. So it's incredibly bite-sized and it's incredibly objective-focused, and you're always kind of playing to beat a score, knowing that it's all that's been set by the previous team, and all you have to do is just be better by them by 1 second, and you can win.
Yeah.
And then the match ends immediately?
And then the match ends immediately. And
so how long do you expect the average match to be for Shutdown?
I think the maximum is basically 20 minutes. So like around is 8 minutes. There's a little bit, you know, before we have the insertion, and then you have the mid-round screen and the end-round screen. So let's say like 20 minutes. But realistically, I think on average, because like sometimes, you know, you score all of the points before the 8 minutes run out. So I assume on average we will see something like 15, 16 minutes. Let's see how the matches turn out in the end. But that's what I would expect.
Yeah. I think, so to correct a little bit, is 7 minutes... 4 minutes, 420 seconds, which I guess is a joke. I don't know.
But who's counting? We're being specific, right?
Damn it.
I don't know, no worries. And I think the layout, the map that's being played, affects the length of the game quite a bit as well. But yeah, expect 15 to 20 minutes of an engagement, and then play your next game for sure. Expect 4 hours of Shutdown back to back. That's what I'm hoping for.
Sounds like a nice, relaxing Battlefield moment.
Yeah.
Just playing
a very long lunch.
I don't know. From what we played so far, I'm not sure if it's relaxing. It's quite intense. It can get very intense. It's definitely targeted a lot towards like you play with your friends. So you know, like in Conquest, like I can go in there alone. And I can have a good time. Yeah. And I can go in there with my friends and I can have a good time. But I think like in these smaller kind of game modes, it's so much, you know, where your actions matter way more.
Yep.
So your actions multiplied by your squad and good communication and so on are going to make such a huge difference. Where again, like in Conquest, I just can go around, you know, lay on a hill with a sniper rifle and just do that for half an hour if I really want to. But here in that mode, it just really won't win you the game. You need to be together with your squad on top of it.
So if you have a nice group of friends to play with, then you'll have a very good time in Shutdown.
Yeah, certainly.
It's set up for playing with friends, squad play.
For sure.
Yeah, it's really great if you have a squad you can coordinate with. Of course, it's not as good a time if the other squad is coordinating better than you. So,
and it's also like one thing that we have seen is, and like I don't think it was necessarily like the goal at the beginning. You know, when we set out like, hey, we want to set up, we got a brief kind of like, what should we achieve here and so on. But like one thing that we have seen is that class play and which class you pick makes such a bigger difference even. Like classes that you might not have chosen normally before because it just doesn't suit your play style suddenly like make a big impact here because you're so on the point defending or attacking. Certain gadgets just matter way more than like if you're in the all-out warfare where like everything can happen at any given time. Here it's like it's a way more selected situation. So yeah, I think we're gonna see a lot of people just switching to different, maybe not play styles, but different classes from time to time. Also like attacker defender. There are certain classes that I think definitely give you a bigger advantage if you're a defender versus when you're attacker, then you want to pick something else. Yeah.
For folks who did miss it, we did bring back the class system end of January in update 3.2. So while you were playing as purely a specialist before, you can now also play as an assault, support, engineer,
recon,
and that's going to be pretty cool in Shutdown to really reinforce that class gameplay. I'm personally, when you mentioned class gameplay, the first one that came to mind for me personally was like Dozer. If we're talking about close quarters combat, like he has a shield, which is, it's just very close quarters combat focus. So if you're playing Conquest on a large skill, and you're just running across the map with the shield, but they can just take you down from a distance.
Running through the desert in hourglass with
that's. But here I'll probably see Dozer. See more gameplay.
Yeah,
it's also a follow-up question for me. Then, when you have your squad, are the specialists locked? As in, I can only play one Dozer on my team, or
no? You can pick as many Dozers as you want. Okay. I think that's
dozen of Dozers.
Now I imagine 8 Dozers.
Yeah, like it's just stuck in my head now.
Yeah, it makes for a nice Dozer barbecue. Because that's the first thing that I got really excited about seeing in Shutdown, actually, when we were playtesting internally, is because it's so CQC and because it's always putting people in these close quarters objectives next to each other, somebody will try to come up with something clever, and it gets a response from the other team that's also clever, and then that creates this sort of back and forth rock, paper, scissors thing. And you see a Dozer, and you're like, okay, this is kind of scary. I'm not sure what I'm going to do against this Dozer right here. And then you have a squad mate who runs up from behind you, and there's one incendiary, and suddenly there's no more Dozers on the other team anymore. And it's so much fun to see that happen in real time, that sort of adaptation in your squad. I'm quite excited to see what players do with that too.
I think an exciting part is, I guess it's what you just mentioned, but you see what the attacking side does, or you as the defender, but then you'll play the attacking side afterwards, so you kind of have to adopt that strategy. But the same for the enemy. They're like, okay, this is what they did as defenders. What are we going to do? And you mentioned the insertion flows like 30 seconds between rounds. So it's like you have to think fast as well and get your tactics in order.
Constantly.
Yeah. It's pretty exciting.
I think it's nice to talk about the objective as well while we're on the subject. So the way you score in Shutdown is that you pick up the lance from your base as an attacker, you take it into one of 3 enemy objectives, and then you plant the lance in those objectives while it's there. The mode itself functions as kind of a sister mode to bomb defuse game modes, where you plant it and then you defend it until it blows up. The kick, the little twist on it for Battlefield, is that it scores points every few seconds. And that's how you earn score in the game mode. So you've planted something, it has about 70 seconds of a lifetime.
70.
70.
Okay.
Yeah. And while it's alive, it's cooking those data drives near it. The defenders, of course, want you to stop doing it. And they will try to come and stop you from doing it. So you have this moment in Shutdown where you've planted a lance, and now suddenly all of your squad mates are thinking about how to defend this one thing which is not actually a player, it's an object that's in the world. So you see you see some people in the corner hiding and like looking at it. You'll see some claymores go down. You'll see some C5s get set up. And Irishes are great in this mode as well. Irish players have a good time. So it's fun to come into a room and see that it's just traps everywhere. And either as an attacker or a defender, sometimes defenders can do it too. They can protect all of these entries and pathways, create chokes that weren't there before.
Yep.
So that's fun to see. And that's how you play the objective of Shutdown. Pick up the lance, plant it, it's scoring points every few seconds, and then Shutdown.
And you mentioned, or not you mentioned, the objectives are dynamic because you can plant them in different spots as well.
The lance, yes, exactly.
So
it's
two
not-
lances.
Yeah, and there are indeed 2 lances for the attacking team. So each squad, or well, any number of players really, you pick up a lance from base, you run into the world, and then you plant the lance inside an objective area, but as you said, wherever. And there's a lot of meta plays around each objective that we're already seeing, where the lances get placed, if they're hidden, if they're in the open, if they're trapped, if they're bait. And I think that's really cool to see as well.
It opens a lot of options for interesting gameplay, baiting people in. Come check out this lance,
Yeah,
bro.
exactly.
But you also mentioned like the name Shutdown. So if you are successful in those planting the lance for those 70 seconds,
Yes.
the objectives area shuts down.
That's
So
correct.
it's a shutdown. So then you have to move to the other area the second lance area. So you also move together with teams to different spots, and eventually you all come together and fight for the final objective.
Yeah,
Exactly.
Which is
And naturally, also through that, basically the odds stack. So in the beginning, as the attacker, you can freely choose, right? So for the defenders, it's a bit hard, right? So hey, you know where they're coming from, you know where the HQ is, but it's kind of like, where are they going? So you can obviously try to take the high ground, try to spot them, and so on. Depends a lot on communication, but still there are like many attack angles, and then the longer you play, the more the odds shift towards the defender, because suddenly, like you only fight over the last objective, which is a very specific location. It might even be depending on, which map you play, because the layouts are very different. Like sometimes they're like all in parallel, sometimes they're more in a triangle where some are closer to the defender HQ and so on. So depending on that, it also might, be very much in the benefit of the defender if it's like closer to the HQ, because then they can reinforce it way easier. But yeah, also like a big thing is spawn beacons. They play a big role on both sides to get quick into the action, since you don't have any flag spawning or so.
Yeah, the recon class gets a lot of play here in Shutdown because of the spawn beacon being their class gadget now. And like Matt was saying, I think the escalation of starting with 3 objectives and having to spread out, the defenders have like so much to watch out for. And then as the objectives are lost, eventually it's 16 players on 1 point. And there is a lance as well. So that chaos that we were talking about, you really see it when you're getting close to the max score in any given round. And players adapt really fast. And I think you see some really interesting stuff just given the layout. You see players in places you wouldn't imagine spotting a McKay before. I have seen 2 Irish shields with a Crawford behind it in a corner in Stranded. There's absolutely no way to get to him. There's going to be a shoot-down sentinel nearby as well. And this person is just like shooting everything that comes in through the gate. And so you have to get really creative. There's a lot of space for that like tactical creativity.
So I think it opens new options or for players to think about how they want to play these rounds, which something we probably haven't seen for a while in other game modes. So I'm personally very excited to see what everybody comes up with. And Raunaq, you mentioned a lot what we've seen already, but that's in our internal playtest, right? Because we obviously playtest the game mode. We have a lot of fun. We have a lot of chaos. Some people might suddenly sit at other tables during lunch because, the matches were very competitive.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. So the game mode goes live, hopefully when you listen to this tomorrow, as planned. And if you have to give a tip for how to play the mode? Anything you want to recommend to players, or just get creative and?
So one, pick your specialist. I'm actually like I put it up now on my phone, kind of like looking at like, hey, all of the different specialists that we have in different classes, and just trying to figure out like which one can you use where and so on. Because it really depends. When you play Flashpoint, for example, due to destructibility, and a lot of the objectives are in the how do you say it, like warehouses, kind of like the buildings in the middle, and then you can lock up the doors, and then so like suddenly you need a lot of explosive to make another entrance. Very Battlefield like. Where on something like Stranded, you don't have that. It's a big boat. You don't really open the boat. But then also depending on situation. So a lot of the classes or specialists are very like defender focused. Some of them are very flank focused or information focused. The spawn beacon, anything, the turrets that you can set up, be it the automated or the ones that you can use, the fortifications. You always need health and ammo, obviously. It's a squad thing. Like there needs to be a lot of like healing. So I think like really everything comes into play, and also like it comes really into play in different modes. Thinking about the tower in the beginning, like on Manifest, when you are, we call Manifest. Sorry, I'm sorry, like the names, like long haul Manifest. Which one is it? Yeah, Manifest. So as the attacker in the beginning, you have a thing where you can kind of zipline up on the tower, and then you get a different kind of access to the map, and then using someone like Sundance to like really go from A to B really quickly. That's very unique to this map, for example. So I think there's a lot of that you can do. The other thing that I totally recommend is since it is a short round, you often forget. I often forget. Oh my god, half of the time it's already over. We haven't planted like a lance yet. Because you get hang up on like the front line somewhere, or you're just trying to hunt down people and so on. So it's really also like keep that in mind and flank around. Take the lance from your HQ, and then don't always just the straight line. Flank around a little bit. We gave you a lot of space. It's okay. Like if they're blocking this entrance, use a different way. And we really thought about these areas also, that you can approach them in so many different ways. Yep. It's never just like, oh, there's one door, like, and everyone's going to block that door. No, there's so many entrances, and you can make your own. So it's very much,
I'm just picturing the entire defending team just standing all at the door, like huddled up, and like this other dude just walks with a lance behind him, like, guys, why are you all standing there? Like, plant lance,
Sundance does that more often than you would think. You can. There are some layouts where you can just like zip right past the defending line off to the other side. Don't even know you're there.
Folks, send us your clips of cool gameplay for Shutdown. We'd love to see it. At Battlefield on socials. We are very curious what kind of creativity you come up with.
God, I am excited for that. I want to see some clips.
Yeah, we want to see some cool clips. So
there's a lot of clutch potential in this mode. Also due to the overtime, so we allow for overtime.
We do.
So when you when the time runs out but the lance is active, the match goes on as long as the lance is active. So at any point you can turn the game match around basically. Just because like, oh, there's just 10 seconds left. No, like if you plant down the lance, it just keeps going. Obviously, either until the lance explodes, or like
the most points, or
like not explodes, but it's kind of like it goes through and then you can pick it up again, kind of thing.
So as a defender, you want to make sure that lance doesn't get planted because the match is almost over.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, and if they then plant the lance at the last second, they can still win.
Yeah,
that's correct. Yeah, and because close to the end of most rounds, there's one objective. It's very important to not let the attackers get a foothold on all the cover paths.
No.
So you have to be on point. For tips from my side, actually, I have 3 important ones. For attackers, it's placement.
Play the objective.
Play the objective.
Play the objective.
Of course. Yeah. And there is only one way to earn score in Shutdown, so you have to be
clear.
playing the objective.
Yeah. Okay.
But because the new mechanic is that you can plant this lance wherever, it's really important to know where the defenders are actually going to come from, and make it as difficult as possible for them to reach the lance. For defenders, objectives are important, but again, know the approach paths, create traps. Traps are, I think, still underrated. I think it's a very good strategy to have your claymores and your shoot down sentinels ready, and Incendiaries do great. And across the board, I think winning tactic for Shutdown, smoke grenades. That's it. That's all
Smoke
I'm going to say.
grenades.
Yeah, just smoke everything.
Okay.
Everything, everywhere, all the time.
But if people now send us clips, there's just smoke
It's just
everywhere. Like we
smoke
can't see anything. Like, okay, so keep that in mind. Cool. So very excited for everybody to get their hands on the new mode, Shutdown. It's something new. It's gonna be cool. What I would love to talk about next is the design of the mode. Like, how do we go about designing a completely new mode? Not only just for like a new event for the season, but as a game modes team. Like, how do you go about this? But before we do we want cookies?
I'm up for cookies.
I'm ready.
Okay, let's take a short break for Cookie of the Week.
Was that correct? How
Okay.
Good job, Tom.
No. You have to. Like, everybody has to like try and pronounce it in Swedish.
Oh my god.
Oh, okay. And we're gonna get scored at the end. Okay, cool.
This is the objective. So yeah.
Havreflan.
You just make it sound Swedish. That feels like cheating. Havreflan. Does that sound?
Havreflan.
Who wins? Who wins?
I think this was pretty good.
Oh man, you took my goddamn.
I mean, you gave a good intro there. Like I wouldn't have said it like that.
Yeah,
at
neither.
all,
Like
but
you kind of yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's a squad play thing for Cookie of the Week. It's fine. I'll take the win. All right, let's go.
It amuses me when I think like, okay, I'm just gonna try and make it sound Swedish, and then it actually works. But yeah, let's eat the cookie itself.
But they don't taste like the ones from IKEA. I really only know them from IKEA. They come in a very big box. Don't ask me why. I'm not a cookie man, but like when you go to IKEA, you buy like, you know, food as well. I do at least. They don't taste like that.
How do you feel about the cookie? Like normally we rate these, but
okay.
I don't know really.
So I'm not a
up our
cookie
own.
person, so
Okay.
I can't really like. I think I like them, but I don't really eat cookies that much. I'm more of a. I like semla, you know, Swedish semla.
It's never too late to change. Like you could become a cookie person. Like maybe after today, you're like, okay, this is what I've been missing in my life.
I think he's saying this one didn't convert him.
No. But it's good. It's good.
That's good. I rated 4 out of 5 smoke grenades.
Okay. Yeah, I would also rate it 4 out of 5 smoke grenades.
Yeah.
Can't remember what the highest rated cookie was, but yeah. So, thank you. Now let's talk design, because you're game mode designers. Can you maybe start with a little bit of an introduction again for the game mode design team? Because Matt, you mentioned that we previously didn't really have that team.
Yeah.
So let's start with how did that come about?
So, going back a little bit, and I can't speak like, you know, how has it been before Battlefield 3, because I don't know. Like I was very young, and also like that's like a lot of
We all were.
That's very, very long time ago. But when I joined, we basically had the OG Niklas, who was the game mode designer. He also originally came from level design. I think like really in the very, very early days, it was just level designers doing also game modes.
Okay.
And then Niklas at some point decided like, okay, like, hey, we're going to do some game modes here. And then for the first years in the titles, Battlefield 3, 4, and 1, I think it was literally just one game mode designer. When we're talking purely about the design, obviously we can talk about this in a little bit, what goes into making like a game mode, but like, you know, you start with a design. And then with Battlefield 5, it started growing. It was 2 people. And now with 2042, it's the first time we have a team, really, like a dedicated department, so to say, for it. And I think that really also like reflects kind of like where the industry is going. And also like where we have to adapt and where we have to go. And I think the future is just generally speaking very exciting. I think there's so much potential, and I hope Shutdown shows this.
Yeah. Because designing a level is completely different than designing a mode. It's not the same thing.
No. It's a. I mean, so I can talk a little bit about that, but like generally speaking, when you do a level, it's it's not that it's easy by any means, like, but it's kind of like a known process, right? You kind of like should roughly know how much time you need. You roughly have a lot of references from like, like if you do a new level, we made like over 100 different Battlefield levels, probably 150 different Battlefield levels over all of these years. You have a lot of reference to draw to draw from. Where I don't necessarily think we have that diversity in the game mode space, in particular for Battlefield. Sure, in the game mode space for like the industry itself, I mean, there's so much out there, but we always need to find our own take. And also like not everything just because it works in this or that game does automatically work here. So I think like a difference, and this is where a lot of the complication, or not complications, but like the unpredictable nature of it comes from, is like finding the fun. Yep. So if I go in and you give me some people and some time, I can make you a map. That will probably be somewhere between, hopefully, so far it has always been somewhere between a good or a great map, because we are, generally speaking, we know how we do maps for Battlefield. And I think with the game mode, I always have the saying that I say to my team is like, only 1 out of 3 ideas are actually good.
You do say that.
Because it is often you start something and you try it out, and in your head it's the greatest thing ever, and then you play it and it's like it just doesn't work. It's not that it's a bad idea or that it wouldn't work in some other game or so, but just sometimes it doesn't come together, or just often it might just be you don't have the right playground. Battlefield levels are in some way very specific, and our game modes need to work on them. So it's not just. Yeah, it's not just that you can just throw any idea on a Battlefield map and it just automatically works. So there's a lot of finding the fun.
And that's where then the team comes in.
This is where the team comes in, and this is also where it just varies depending, development time. Like you can probably make some mode very, very quickly. Like TDM is generally speaking an easy thing, right? Like it's just about running around and shooting until you reach the highest score. And then you have more complicated modes, like Shutdown.
Would you say that Shutdown is one of the more complicated modes we've done so far?
Certainly.
Yeah. Totally. So Hazard Zone was very, very complicated because it's something totally different. Yeah. And Shutdown is like, for this title, it's second place for sure. Purely with like all of the stuff that we did new, all of the new technology that we needed to develop. It was a very unknown space. Yeah. It took also quite a while.
Yeah, and it was great to get that like faith from the team that we can make a mode that feels that different, and that tries to explore a space we haven't explored yet.
How do you come up with new ideas for modes?
So I think the starting point for each mode differs, but I can talk about how we started Shutdown. And Shutdown starts with a very specific brief for an experience we want to try and achieve. Shutdown started with objective-focused, light tactical, CQC, infantry.
So you want to build that mode?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So what we know is those words, and then it's up to us to try and interpret them, because season 4 tries to achieve something. And how can we make a mode that doubles down on that fantasy? How can we make a mode that showcases all of the things that the game has? I think Shashank at some point used the kitchen analogy, restaurant analogy.
Please drop some food references in here. We need to keep that going.
I think we can continue, but think of Battlefield as a franchise, and 2042 specifically as your pantry space. So if you're making a pizza from this pantry, you have to use the ingredients you have at hand.
Yep.
If the game mode designer is your pizzaiolo, they're not gonna just pick up whatever.
Yep.
I think fish goes on this pizza. It can't just be that. So you have to be really aware of the game we already have at hand.
Yep.
And when somebody says light tactical CQC infantry focused, how do we build that but not lose the spirit of Battlefield? Knowing what 2042 comes with, knowing how the characters work, knowing how each specialist has their own tools. There's open gadgets, class gadgets. Everybody wants to role play their squad with their squad and their classes as well. So keeping in mind the ingredients that are already there, and then following the brief of the season to come up with a sort of pitch that makes sense. That's been the starting ground for Shutdown, at least.
Yeah.
And so you come up with the idea, you pitch the idea to other teams, or I guess our creative director, I don't know.
Yes.
And then they say, I like this. And then you go work out that approach.
Yeah, exactly. So you have different milestones in between. In the beginning, it just starts with an idea.
Yeah.
A piece of paper, some document, you pitch something. I mean, you had like a PowerPoint presentation basically in the beginning for Shutdown.
Mirrorboard PowerPoint.
Yeah, and then you go into a meeting room, with leads, directors, producers, and so on, and you pitch it, and then okay, that sounds like the thing. It hits the marks, kind of like that we want to hit. And again, it also depends like what is the starting point. Like in this case, it was like we got a brief because we want to hit a season and we want to hit a season theme. But it might be like if we like at the beginning. Of when we did 2042, the briefs were very different. Or sometimes it might just be like, hey, do you have a cool idea? And then if you just have a cool idea somewhere that you came up with and then you pitch it and if it's cool enough, and then we just put some people on it and do it. But then basically after you have this idea and this idea is approved, you need to start planning. And this is kind of like where really like the scope of the mode itself shows itself. And that also depends on the type of mode. But when you like think a little bit about like the people that we needed to involve in this mode, for example, so we have in our team, so we have kind of like a feature team, so to say, for modes, and in there itself they're like tech people, so be it engineers or be it tech designers. We have Raunaq, for example, as the designer for Shutdown. We also have some other designers. We have UX, we have UI, and then we work together with VO. Because we need VOs normally for the game modes. We need audio. We need a narrative team. In this particular mode, we needed animations. We needed 3D art, and VFX. We needed VFX, exactly. And then you always have testing. And so suddenly, you start up, it starts in someone's head, in Raunaq's head, and then at some point there are like 15, 20 people working on it. I mean, not full-time all the time, right? Like there are different stages and so on. But it's certainly not a thing anymore, I think. Well, I don't know if it ever was really, but it was less people back in the days, right? And now it is certainly a bigger thing. It needs quite some planning.
Do you feel designs have become more complicated? Or not maybe more complicated, but richer? Like I don't know what the right word is.
I have a nuanced take on the subject.
Okay.
I think players understand games a lot better now.
Okay.
Which gives us the ability to make things that are more sophisticated from the ground up.
Yeah.
Like if you look at a battle royale, the battle royales are incredibly complex in their world and how resources are spawned and how players manage them. But people get them. People instinctively understand way more complicated rule sets than they did before. And I think that is part of the reason why game modes are getting more complex as well, is because players understand them better.
Yeah. And to circle back a little bit, earlier you mentioned like 1 out of every 3 ideas is good. So we have Shutdown now. How many ideas did you come up with in the beginning before you settled on Shutdown? I'm very curious.
Oh,
Shutdown, I don't know if it was fundamentally different in the beginning, but it changed for sure.
Changed quite a bit. We've iterated on it quite a bit.
And there are also still, depending on who you ask internally, because we get feedback, there are also certain things that we did where like some people are like, don't do it that way. Like simple stuff like, can I destroy or not destroy the lands with my gun?
Yeah.
We decided not to. There are reasons why we decided that. I'm not saying it's the right decision. It's just it's the decision we went for.
Yep.
Because like if you remember, like in Bad Company 2, you could destroy the MCOM with explosives. And then later we decided to not do that anymore. So there's not always a right or wrong. Another big thing that I think came around a lot was this, don't make it a lance that destroys over time. Like right now, you generate points basically over time. Make it like a bomb. So you plant it, and when the timer's out, big boom, you score a point.
Yep.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that design. For us, it was leaning too close to rush a little bit.
Yep.
And also, it just really didn't fit kind of like what we wanted to do. And I don't think that would be a bad game mode, though. So it's just a different kind of game mode. But then there were other things that you probably run into that where it just didn't work really.
Yeah, all the time. Constantly.
It's a lot of testing.
Yeah.
Because you mentioned a few ideas. I assume you tested all of these as well during the creation.
For a while we did,
Yep.
And honestly, like oftentimes things sound like it should make sense. And then you just tinker a little bit, you put it into the build, and then you get your hands on it immediately. It's like, this doesn't feel right. There's something that's off about it. It's not even worth going into, everybody put your time into playtesting this. And I think that's an interesting part of the game mode development process is a lot of things sound okay on paper. You put them in the game and it completely stops making sense. the knock-on effects become clear, and you're like, I don't know about this. Like explosives, for example, to destroy the lens. Some characters and some gadget loadouts will instantly become the obvious choice for Shutdown. If we're asking for a mode that's focused on this like infantry versus infantry close quarters play, adding explosives into it is going to push people just that much further away from each other. And it's going to prevent you from being close to the lens. And I think the magic of Shutdown happens on those prolonged fights in a small objective. Because I think that is an experience that's fun, is there is something that occupies a really small space in the world that you're really trying to defend. And to add explosives into that mix would take the infantry slightly further away. And you only get that when when you're sitting there with a very clear idea of what you want to try and achieve, and then you use that as a scissor for decision making.
Okay. If you had to guess how many iterations Shutdown went through before the final product that players get their hands on.
Just talking about the rule set, the small things that have changed easily in the hundreds, maybe in the 100+ in all the tiny things that have changed from the original presentation that existed. In spirit, of course, it's the same game mode. Even the name has changed. It used to be called something else.
Can we share what it was called?
No, definitely not. No, but there was a reason why we changed it.
Okay.
Yeah. Like it's funny. Sometimes I just get a ping like, "Hey, what do you think about this name?" I'm like, it's good or bad, and then I never, hear from it again until like I see the final. I'm like, oh, okay. So, yeah, it's interesting. One other thing I also wanted to hear from you is, or maybe shed a light on for players, is the iterations that this game mode went through as well. As a player, you just see Shutdown, the final game mode. Mm-hmm. But it's just not clear to a player how much testing and iterations we do.
Yes.
And I think it's always interesting to share that perspective from an internal point of view. We test a lot. We change a lot.
We do.
We make new plans. Ideas change all the time.
Yeah.
And I think it's when you get your hands on the final product, it's interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is a result of all of the people who play it at DICE sharing their opinions on it, being open enough to give us feedback, because we all want to succeed at what we're doing, and there's some really interesting and nuanced feedback that comes out of those playtests as well. So like one of the iterations we did on Shutdown was how scoring works. So right now when you earn score in Shutdown, it happens every 3-point-something seconds, to be precise. So you get 1 point every 3-point-something seconds. There's like this cool big pulse that comes out of the lance. It makes a wub, like a classic wub sound. And in the world, the data drives that are placed in containers, they'll start frying. So you see like small electrical fires in the objective nearby. And all of this happens at exactly 3.5 second intervals. And all of this is like a cascade of different feedback coming together to make what now feels like it's obvious we should have done this way in the beginning, except it's the audio team, it's the VFX team, it's feedback from people. And the feedback, like from the beginning, the first iteration of the score was that you plant the lance and it immediately scores .1 score every millisecond. So it's constantly counting up. So it's racing.
Too much feedback maybe.
Exactly. Yeah. And the idea then was that to the player, it should feel like every second it's alive, the enemy team scoring. So I'm asked to be really urgent in my decision making. And then I got feedback from somebody in the team who said, like, this feels like negative stress. It doesn't feel good to me as somebody who's going to defend, because the amount of time I spend defending, the enemy is still scoring. And the idea of negative stress was it was so important to understanding how players perceive scoring as well. Because to me, it's like, as the designer, you want to know very accurately what the score is every second. But actually, for a player, it's okay to slow things down a little bit. Yep. And you need somebody sometimes who's a bit more zoomed out to give you that feedback. And now the audio, the VFX, the in-world VFX as well, and the scoring are all synced perfectly together. And then when it works and you're standing there and you see like it makes this wub and the score in your UI changes up by 1, and you see that everything is kind of like attached to one moment in gameplay. And then when it shuts down as well, there's like this big effect, big audio, big score. and everything comes together at the same time. And this can only happen when, enough players give you feedback and they're invested in the mode themselves.
And it feels good now?
Oh, it feels great. I really, really I will sometimes zone out because I'm just standing there looking at the thing, and every 3.5 seconds it goes like, wow. I love that.
One thing I forgot to mention earlier, but we talked a little bit about playtesting. And I remember when I met you at the coffee queue in the office.
Right.
And it was the first time I think we were going to playtest Shutdown as a whole studio. And you were very stressed out and nervous because, a lot of work went into the creation of the mode, and now everybody gets to test it for the first time.
Yeah.
What does it feel like as a designer?
I think that one was for me. So this for me is my first game mode at DICE, from start to finish, and terrifying, I think, is the word I would use. But it's because that first playtest is the moment where it goes out of the modes team into the rest of DICE. And suddenly everybody who's seen it can start to have opinions on it, can start to give you feedback. And invariably, because not all teams have had a chance to contribute, some things are not going to work.
Yep.
And the experience that works in my head is that I want to get it to the finished product, and I see a straight line to that finished product.
Yep.
And as soon as it goes out to the rest of the studio, I can forget about that straight line. All bridges are destroyed. Now there is an end experience that has to be chasing the fun. Like we use follow the fun all the time in game development. And I think it's doubly important in game modes. So you're kind of exposing this idea that's been incubating within your team. And then now everybody sees it. And it's time to let go of whatever you thought was cool. Now it's time to chase what everybody else who's playing really has to say about it. And it's time to chase that.
Okay.
So yeah, scary. Very scary.
I guess final question is this is then going to be a fun one, because you just mentioned you were very stressed, nervous for the studio to get their hands on the game mode.
Yes.
So we are I think you know where I'm going with this.
Oh yeah, I do.
We are recording this a little bit in advance, but by the time players listen to this, the mode goes live the following day. So how are you? How are you feeling about that?
I said terrified already, didn't I? This one I'm feeling a little better about, to be honest with you.
Because you're confident now in our testing feedback.
Yes, exactly. I think the mode is now in a place where it's ready to be played. Okay. It's ready to get feedback from players. Now, in the same way that the first time exposing it to the studio was to chase the fun, now we can start chasing what the audience thinks about it. Hopefully we've hit a lot of the right notes, but naturally once it's out in the wild, people are going to have different expectations from it. Okay. And the reason I'm less terrified of players getting their hands on it is I think it is now in the state where any opinion that comes in is going to be like, cool, I think we get the vision of the mode. Yep. We get the experience you're trying to give us. Here's how you can make it even better. And I think that's exciting for the future. So I'm actually really looking forward to it. And also because I think we've done good work on it.
Yeah. No, I think it also has been a while.
It has.
Good time coming.
Yep. A number of months.
Yeah. And seeing a lot of feedback. And it's also like, it's funny, you going back to this iteration thing. Like there's some stuff that we really just changed last minute.
We did.
Like the end of round and mid round screen. And I made such a huge difference. So normally there's only a certain amount of time that you spend on that. Like Conquest, for example, like, oh, I won because I had more tickets or less tickets or something like that,
yep.
Right? But here it's so important because you reach the mid round point and then it's like kind of like, okay, what do I need to achieve? Or also like at the end of round, because they're depending on the situation, they're like somewhat like two conditions that could lead to win or lose, which is like either based on time, if you have the exact amount of destroyed data on both sides, or destroy data, then it's a little bit more easier. But you want to kind of like explain that. And we were facing a lot of internal feedback where people like, I'm playing this. This is fun. This is intense. I like this. I have no idea what's going on. Like kind of thing. Yeah. So it's kind of, and it's these easy things where it's like people really enjoy what they're playing, but they don't necessarily understand how to win or like how to turn around or if they're losing or winning and so on. So there's definitely a difference also between the moment to moment and like kind of like how you look at it in the whole game.
Yeah, it is akin to digging for gold a little bit. You like there's some really meaty feedback that you get only when the mode realizes its potential internally. But you have to go through quite a few iterations
Yep.
to arrive at the point where you're like, this is exactly what it should be.
Yep.
And the feedback that comes in at that point is the one that really helps. So if we didn't have a mid-round screen that didn't work well, if we didn't have an end-of-round screen that didn't work well, we would never have received feedback about it and then tried to iterate on it instead. So it's because people like started understanding how the mode works, and they were suddenly like, intuitively, I get what I'm supposed to do. Now I can give you the deeper level of feedback about the experience.
Okay.
So it is, in a way, a waiting game.
Final thoughts
On Shutdown.
on Shutdown.
I have a dream that never came true for Shutdown. Can we talk about it?
I want to hear about your dreams.
Okay.
Let's go.
Okay, cool. So you know, like when because Matt was talking about clutch plays, right? Like there's this thing when you watch streamers, when they get a clutch play, they take off their headphones, toss them across the room, and they do like a little dance slightly away from the camera. Like I was really hoping for that at some point. And the thing is, Shutdown, the way it's built, you only really get to celebrate at the end of the round. So if you have a moment where like you really want to throw your headphones and send me a clip, please do it. But remember that you have to get into the game right away. So it's because
You don't
it's
have
ongoing.
a lot of time to dance. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
Don't celebrate too early.
Exactly. But like if there is a Shutdown dance that comes out of it, I'm hyped. Where, you know, like distance to keyboard is minimized. Like you're still there back in the action, but you can dance a little bit. I would love to see that.
Shutdown dance.
Yeah.
That's
Shutdown dance.
certainly a different generation.
Yeah.
I support this dream. Just saying.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So I think that was a good overview of what we have coming with the Leviathan Rising event, the new Shutdown game mode. So that's all we have for you today, folks. So thank you so much for listening in. Matt and Raunaq, thank you for being here as well.
Thank you for having us.
I really enjoyed this discussion about game modes. As a reminder, Leviathan Rising runs from April 11 to April 25, and we'll live stream a playthrough tomorrow.
Are you gonna dance?
Myself.
maybe do a little. Okay, so since you brought up the dream, I think we have to do the dance ourselves now.
Like, if I'm allowed to expense a set of headphones, yes. Like, I will dance.
You throw them.
I will dance.
I'll get in touch with my people about that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom.
So anyway, cheers, folks. Thank you for listening. Get in touch with us at #InsideBattlefield on socials or podcast@battlefield.com. And from all of us here at our Battlefield studios, stay classy and PTFO. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.